Welcome to the Backyard Bounty Podcast from heritageacresmarket.com, where we talk about all things backyard poultry, beekeeping, gardening, sustainable living, and more. And now, here's your host, Nicole.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Backyard Bounty. I'm your host, Nicole, and today we're joined by Ceanne with Farmhouse Teas, and we're going to talk about how to make teas and the process and what we need to do to make our own delicious homemade blends. So, Ceanne, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Nicole.
So we did an episode a couple weeks back, so this is our second one together, so that's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about making our own teas, which I think is something that a lot of people probably haven't even considered that it's a possibility to make their own tea, short of maybe some chamomile that they grew in the garden. So you specialize in the medicinal teas, is that accurate?
Well, we started out as a medicinal tea company, and there's a lot of legalities around marketing medicinal teas because you can't call it a medicine. There's some legal things that would get you into the drug labeling and that kind of thing. And so we kind of drifted towards teas more for sipping. And we do have some wellness blends. We found that it's easier to teach people how to make their own medicinal teas than necessarily market them that way.
I guess that makes sense. There can be certain stipulations that make things challenging,
right.
Just like essential oils.
Yes. All herbal medicine, I think.
Yeah. So if we wanted to get started with making our own medicinal tea, where's the starting point?
Oh, there could be lots of starting points. It's really going to depend on whether you want to just start blending right now and you're going to buy dried herbs, or if you're wanting to grow your own and you've got some out in the garden. So there's kind of two different paths there. Down the road, either way, no matter which path you choose, the key to blending medicinal teas is really using the Medicinal Tea Triangle. And that helps you formulate your teas so that they work to their best.
So what is the Medicinal Tea Triangle?
So the tea triangle is broken down into 3 sections, and it's just got different types of herbs and their properties and what they do. So the base of the triangle, you have your primary herbs, and those are going to be the ones that you probably pick and think of first for whatever your issue is. So if you've got like a digestive issue and you're wanting to make a blend for that, those are going to be your primary herbs. And then the middle part of the triangle is called the supportive herbs. And those are going to be the ones that are nourishing the body, they're supporting the body, things that are full of vitamins, and it could also be supportive in the way of flavor. And then at the top of the triangle, you've got the catalyst herbs. So we think of a catalyst as in the person at the head of the army that's leading them all. And that's the same with herbs. The catalyst herb is going to be the one that stimulates your body and helps get the blood flowing. And it's also going to help get your digestive system going. And it's going to help you absorb those herbs and get them moving into the right places and doing the right things.
So what, and I'm going to build off this in a second. What would you say is the most common ailment that people want to make their own tea for?
I don't know if there's one, but there's probably a handful. In our day and age, life's really busy, and so stress and anxiety are at the top of the list. Digestive issues, that it could include IBS or Crohn's, anything like that. And weight loss. You could probably put weight loss in there. And probably I would say the fourth one would be like arthritis or joint back pain. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
That was supposed to be turned off.
No worries.
So those are probably the 4 that we hear about the most. And you might throw in there like cold and flu and just kind of acute issues. Okay.
So let's say that I decided that I wanted to make a tea for just like stress relief, a general, after work, before bed, stress
kind of
relief kind of tea.
A wind down nighttime tea. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the Medicinal Tea Triangle. How do I even go about figuring out which teas I should use with this triangle?
We have a foundational learning in our course that goes with blending these teas. And part of that is learning about herbal monographs and putting together a materia medica, which is basically an herbal journal, a reference guide. And so as you study individual herbs and find out all their medicinal properties and everything that goes along with that, you have this guide. You can look up herbs for those things and use that as your base for filling out your tea triangle.
And when it comes to building the tea triangle, how do we know that all of the flavors are going to get along well?
With medicinal teas, that can be a little tricky because a lot of medicinal herbs, they don't necessarily taste that fantastic.
Right.
So people are probably going, yep, I've had medicinal tea before. It tasted horrible. I'm not getting it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to get them to taste good, I think a little bit of experience comes along with that. You've got to kind of mesh the knowledge of blending teas for flavor along with blending teas for medicinal purposes and try and find your happy middle. And that's really going to change for each person because everyone's got, flavor preferences, things they like and things they don't like.
So you kind of mentioned earlier in your course, I guess we should say that you do have a course in brewing medicinal teas, blending them.
Yes, blending and growing and preserving.
And as we talk about this, if somebody decides that they want to go ahead and blend their own teas, is that available on your website?
Yes, we actually have a different website. It can be found on our Farmhouse Teas page too, but we have our educational site is called Grow, Create, and Sip. So it would be growcreatesip.com, and all the info on the course and future courses are there.
Okay, great. Because I know that right now, if I was to try to make a medicinal tea triangle, I would be so lost.
Great.
So
It's kind of a detailed process, which is why we created a course on it, because it can be complicated. It involves a lot of prior information and knowing a bit of herbalism, but it can be simple too if you have the right tools.
Okay, great. And I assume the course was one of those tools.
Yes, definitely. It always helps to have a handheld and a guide.
Absolutely. So as we go along the process of creating our wind down tea, so we've looked at the triangle and we've kind of picked some herbs. How do we go about sourcing the herbs? Let's say we can't grow all of them in our garden.
Right. And I mean, a lot of us can't grow a lot of things like cinnamon or anise, those things that grow in really, really warm climates, and they only come from certain parts of the world. So we source teas from all over the place, depending on what we need, but we look for quality as well as it being affordable. And so we try and mesh those two and meet in the middle so that we're not spending a fortune on herbs, but we're also making sure we get good quality, because otherwise our medicinal tea or medicine is not going to be high quality. So a few of those places we like to source from are Star West Botanicals, Mountain Rose Herbs, Monterey Bay Spice. And then if we're looking for something really specific that those places don't carry, we hunt around until we find what we're looking for.
So now that we've made our tea, I'll assume that, we went through the process. So we've made a tea that we like and that it's balanced and flavorful. What is the best way let's say first, what's the best way to brew the tea? How do we know how to brew it to get the best nutrient or antioxidant release?
Right. So most people are used to a cup of tea made from a tea bag, and we really don't want to use those when we're brewing medicinal teas. It's okay every once in a while if you have an unbleached tea bag, but a study just came out showing that bleached tea bags are made with microplastics, and so we're steeping that in our tea, and those things don't leave our bodies very well. And so when we're doing tea for medicine, we really want to skip that. And then the other reason you don't want to use a tea bag is because usually those herbs in there are really old. They're ground up, or maybe the dust that's left at the bottom of the barrel after the loose leaf tea is taken off the top. So we want to get quality herbs and we want to get whole herbs. And then we want to brew them differently for medicine. We want to steep them for a longer time, usually 10 to 15 minutes if you're doing an infusion. And then we're going to use a larger amount of herb too. So instead of the teaspoon that's usually used, it's usually going to be a tablespoon or more. So you're doing 3 to 4 times the amount. And then when you have a loose leaf tea, my favorite way to steep that is with a tea press or what some people might know as a French press if you're a coffee drinker. And that's just a really simple way to steep it. You just throw it in, put the water on top, push the plunger down, and let it steep.
I didn't realize, I guess, that you brewed it longer, because I know most of my teas are only, 2 to 5 minutes probably.
Right. Yep. 2 to 5. And so you're looking at 10 to 15 if you're doing like a leaf infusion. If you're doing a root infusion, like say dandelion or chicory or burdock, you're going to want to put those in a pot on the stove, and you're actually going to want to simmer them and cook the water down halfway. So you're looking at maybe 20 to 30 minutes to make a decoction, because those roots are really thick and dense, and it takes a long time to get the medicinal properties out. And so they need to be steeped different than like a peppermint.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So when we're in between enjoying our tea, how do we go about storing our tea so that it lasts the longest?
Right. We get that question a lot. How do I know if this herb is still good? Do they go bad? So dried goods, and specifically herbs for tea, they don't go bad like, say, the leftovers in your refrigerator. The leftovers are going to get moldy, they're going to get smelly, and you know that they are bad. So with the herbs, they don't necessarily just go bad. They slowly degrade over time. They might fade, they might get brittle, they might turn a darker color, and they're going to lose their flavor and their medicinal qualities over time. So we just need to use our senses to be able to tell if those are good herbs or not. And if moisture gets in there, moisture is the enemy of dried goods. You're going to know because it's going to mold, and then you can just toss those out or compost them. But when we're storing them, to keep them from getting that way, we want to remember 2 things: to keep them out of direct sunlight, because light is going to make them fade. And then we want to pay attention to our storage container. We can use clear glass if it's out of sunlight. Otherwise, like an amber color container, or in a dark colored bag that's in a plastic tote. And keeping them stored that way will keep them fresher longer. And then we just want to keep them in a cool, dry spot and out of moisture so that we don't get that moisture in the dried herbs.
So how long would you say the average dried tea is good for?
When we're blending on the farm, we put a best by date of about 18 months. Now it's just going to depend on how it's stored. Today I was just putting some herbs in jars that are 2 years old, and they are ones that we grew ourselves, and they look fresher than some of the ones that we've bought before, which don't have to have a date on them. So I don't know how old the ones we buy are. Again, we just have to use our senses to know if they're good or bad. And it's really just going to depend on how they're stored and how they were harvested even.
So it kind of sounds like this process of blending tea, by the time we try to figure out which ones that we want for our triangle, and then either growing them or sourcing them, and then the actual process of blending them and storing them, it kind of sounds like this is something that is a little bit labor intensive. Would you agree with that?
The actual blending of the tea, really, it doesn't take much time. It's maybe formulating your tea blend and making sure you have the right ingredients and you have the right setup and all of that. So I would say that once you have the knowledge, it probably would only take you 5 to 10 minutes to blend a tea for an ailment.
It is probably not as overwhelming as it really sounds.
Right.
And do you have any other tips or tricks or suggestions for those that are starting out and wanting to start brewing their own teas? I'm sorry, blending their own teas.
Get started with what you have, and that includes knowledge, and that includes whatever dried herbs you have. If it's basil out of your spice cupboard, or you have rosemary growing in your garden, or whatever you have, just start there. Start with that one thing. Learn everything you can about basil or rosemary, whatever the herb is. Just start brewing, sipping tea, even if it's the stuff in the tea bag. Just get used to flavors and knowing what they do, and that's really the best place to start.
I know that tends to kind of hang people up as they spend so much time preparing and kind of stressing about it, that getting started, that's the first step and sometimes the hardest.
Right. Just movement in the direction is the important thing, and then keep at it and make it a habit.
Absolutely. And one good step in the right direction, of course, would be your Medicinal Teas in Small Spaces class.
Yes, we would love to have everybody. It's a foundational course that's really starting at the very beginning with the very basics. You don't have to know anything, even if you've never had a cup of tea. It's a great place to start.
Fantastic. I know that that's something that I'm going to be checking out for a winter project. I can always use more things to keep myself entertained over the winter. And then, of course, the great health benefits that come from it as well.
Yep. And with the cold weather, it's totally tea season.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, so you mentioned also your Farmhouse Teas website. So where else can people find you?
On YouTube, we have free tutorials and videos and also some farm updates. And we're on YouTube under Farmhouse Teas. And we're on Instagram under Farmhouse Teas, as well as Facebook. And on Facebook, we also have our Grow, Create, Sip page, which will have specific tutorials and information on growing, creating, and sipping your own teas.
Fantastic. Well, those all sound like really great resources. Well, Ceanne, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today and to talk about brewing tea, something, like I said before, I didn't even think that I could do, and now I'm inspired and something that I'm going to definitely look into doing this winter.
Right. It's a great winter project.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ceanne, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
And for those of you listening, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Backyard Bounty, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to Backyard Bounty, a podcast by heritageacresmarket.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, please email us at ask@heritageacresmarket.com. Also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Heritage Acres Market. All the links mentioned in this podcast will be included in the description. See you again next week.